Well, this gives me absolute great pleasure. We've been saying it since the very beginning of it all. And quite frankly, we told you so. I told you so. Experts told you so. What are we? Here, Bloomberg, right in the economic section. 170 billion and counting. The cost of Brexit for the UK. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants to unleash Britain's potential. And of course, we've discussed what that phrase really means when we've discussed the book Britannia Unleashed and what they actually want to do to this country. And my God, if that is really what they want to do, I tell you this, no one voted for it. It wasn't in their manifesto, and we will see in March when they release their first budget, which I highly suspect is going to be a pretend budget. It's going to be an absolute disaster. You've already had this improving towns fund not launched in a town but in a city nonetheless, which basically proves that the Tories have no idea what they're doing when it comes to the economy, and yet apparently they're the party of business. So he wants to unleash Britain's potential. First the economy has to catch back up with the rest of the world. Research by Bloomberg Economics estimates that the economic cost of Brexit has already hit £130 billion. That's $170 billion. And a further £70 billion is set to be added by the end of this year. That's based on the damage caused by the UK untethering it from its group of 7 peers over the past 3 years. While growth globally has also cooled in recent years, the analysis by Bloomberg Economics shows that the UK still lagged behind. There is strong historic correlation between the UK and the G7 countries, but they have all been diverging since the vote to leave the EU, with the British economy now 3% smaller. So yes, Brexit is damaging us economically. That is undeniable. And when we leave, it will damage us even more, which makes it even so more hilarious, because when you bring this up to Brexiteers, again, it was all apparently doing trade deals with the rest of the world. And, we don't need Europe anymore. And yet Brexit has already shown, just by this article we're now reading, that we do need Europe. Because economically, we're 3% smaller than we were before the vote. And it could have, it's 3% smaller than it could have been had the relationship been maintained. The UK is finally set to leave the European Union at the end of this month after Johnson's election victory. But the uncertainty since the 2016 referendum has taken a toll. Businesses' investment in particular has been held back, and the analysed economic growth has halved to 1% from 2%. Dan Hansen, the UK economist for Bloomberg Economics, puts the total cost of Brexit by the end of 2020 at £200 billion. And as an aside, this cost for us has already cost us more than the total contributions we have made to the EU in 47 years. So already, Brexit is not worth it. Now, you won't see this covered on any mainstream news channels. You won't see any Brexiteers covering this. I've only seen this article in Bloomberg. So please do share this video far and wide to your local Brexiteers, because I'm sure they'll have some excuse as to why this is the case. Or I'll get told, oh, it's not about the economy, when the entire campaign, arguments people have made have always been about the economy. So £200 billion as it continues to take a toll on companies and customers. While Johnson's deal with the EU late last year removed the imminent threat of a no-deal split, God damn it, advertisement. So while Johnson's last year removed the imminent threat of a no-deal split, he still has to negotiate new trading arrangements. That creates another potential cliff edge at the end of the year, and we will be building up to it, I'm very sure. He will have to extend the transition period. He can't, trade deals are not done in a year. It is just impossible. The government remains upbeat. Ahead of the budget in March, the first major opportunity to spell out the economic plans for the new Conservative majority government. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sajid Javid, has promised a decade of renewal, whatever that means. But as usual, the Conservatives are all big and bluff, but when it comes to actually delivering, they are very, very far from the mark. So, tax cuts and increased borrowing for investment are all on his agenda. Tax cuts and borrowing gets this country into more debt. Bearing in mind, the Conservatives continuously attack the past Labour government for racking up so much debt. Now, this Conservative government has piled up more debt than the Labour government, and now, with the tax cuts and the increased borrowing, it's only going to ratchet it up more. So, apparently, increasing the deficit is fine when it's a Conservative government, but bad when it's a Labour government. Despite this, none of the ground lost since the 2016 is likely to be made up. Looking beyond 2020, we forecast the growth spurt in this year, but it will be a one-off. The economy will get a shot in the arm, but the cynical lift that provides will not last, he said. As the UK comes to terms with its new trading relationship with the EU and grapples with the productivity challenge that has hindered growth since the financial crisis, the annual cost of Brexit is likely to keep increasing. So, the question that we always ask, Brexit, is it worth it? Absolutely, 100% no, it is not worth it.